Hello everyone, it's Alex back with the videos. Now in this video, I'm going to teach you how to solve simple equations. Now, if you're in Australia, this is about what you would be learning if you're in the beginning of year 8, or in some cases, extension material for year 7 students. Okay, so here it goes. Now, I'm going to go through some simple examples first, before going through some more complicated examples. So this is the simple example that I'm going to go through. So you're given an equation, 3x is equal to 10, and the question asks you to solve. Now what this means is it wants you to find the value of x, such that 3 times that number will give you 10. So 3x means 3 times x, for those that don't know. And to solve this equation, what we want to do is we want to isolate the x. In other words, we want our final answer to be x is equal to something, okay? So how do we get to this? Now, if you think about it, 3 times x is equal to 10. So to make x by itself, what we can do is we can divide both sides by 3. Okay, so I'm just going to write it here. Divide both sides by 3 means divide the left side and the right side by 3. Okay, so now we have to do what we do best. Divide. So what is 3x divided by 3? 3x divided by 3 is x, right? Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. We write the equal sign. In the next step, we divide the 10 by the 3. So what's 10 divided by 3? Well, 3 doesn't go into 10, so we're just going to leave it as a fraction. 10 over 3. And there's your answer. X is equal to 10 over 3. Now, from my own preference, I prefer leaving it as a fraction. You do not need to leave it as a mixed fraction, but if you want to, you can go to the extra mile and write it as 3 1/3, okay? But this is entirely optional. You do not need to do this, okay? Okay, so this is our first example. Now I'm going to go through the next example. The next example is also quite simple, as you can see. 7 plus k is equal to 14. Now, similar to the last example, the idea is to solve for k. So that means your final answer should be k is equal to something, right? So it should look something like this. So how do we do this? Well, if you look at it carefully, you currently have a 7 plus k on the left hand side. What you want to do is you want to reduce this into k. So what you can do is you can take away the 7 from here, and then the left hand side will become k. So if I take away the left hand side by 7, I have to do the same to the right hand side. Okay? That makes it fair. Now, it would not be fair if you just took away 7 from the left hand side and did nothing to the right hand side. Okay? So now we have to do 7 plus k take away 7, which gives you k, right? Because 7 take away 7 gives you 0. 0 plus k gives you k. Is equal to 14 take away 7. That's equal to 7. Okay? So I expect you guys to already kind of know what k is without writing this minus 7 part. But it's very important that you write this step, because in the harder questions, by developing this good habit, it will make it a lot easier. Okay, so I'll go through a slightly hard example now. 5 plus 9h is equal to 32. Okay, so in this example, it requires slightly more steps, as you can see. We have 5 plus 9 times h equals to 32. So what should the first step be? Well, in my opinion, I think the first step, we should get rid of the 5 from both sides first. Okay. Oh yeah, so like I said, your final answer should be something that looks like this. H is equal to something, okay? So step 1, take away 5 from both sides. So I'm going to take away 5 from the left-hand side and the right-hand side, okay? Because you cannot just take away 5 from one side. 5 plus 9h, take away 5, gives you 9h. Is equal to 32 take away 5 is 27. Now, as you can see, I have reduced this complicated equation into this simple equation, right? Now, that's what you want to aim for every time you solve for equations. The subsequent equations that you write, they have to be more simple than the original equation, okay? Because if it's not, then we've just wasted all that time doing nothing. So Okay, so if I'm going to give you an example of what you should not be doing, is say, for example, in this equation, say what we did was, instead of take away 5, I took away 9h from both sides, okay? Now 5 plus 9h, take away 9h, that's just 0. Oh, sorry, that's just 5, right? Equal to 32 take away 9h. Now if you look at this equation here, to me this equation looks as complicated as this equation. So in other words, we did nothing to make the equation more simple, right? So this is an incorrect step. So I'm just going to go back to the previous step that I did. So the correct step is to take away 5 from both sides. And it's very important that you understand this, because by taking away 5 from both sides, you reduce this equation into a more simple equation. 9h is equal to 27. The next step, what you can do to make 9h into h, you can divide both sides by 9. Okay, so divide this side by 9 and divide this side by 9. So then you're left with 9h divided by 9, which is h, is equal to 3. And this is the answer we want, and that looks something like this, right? Okay. Next question. This is something similar. So as you can see, at the moment we have a number and a pronumeral on the left hand side, and we have a number on the right hand side. Okay. So we want to make it more simple. What we can do is we can take away 12 from both sides, so that we're only left with a variable on the left hand side and a number on the right hand side. So I'm just going to do it. Take away 12 from both sides. So if we take away 12 from the left side, we have to take away 12 from the right side, right? So then 12 minus 2y, take away 12. That becomes minus 2y, right? Now, remember, 12 take away 2y, take away 12. So we can actually just do the 12 take away 12 first, and then do the take away 2y, okay? So this will give you 0 minus 2y, which is equal to minus 2y, okay? Now that's equal to 3, right? Because 15 take away 12 is equal to 3. Now in the next step, there's a few ways that we can do it, but the easiest way, in my opinion, is to divide both sides by minus 2. Because if we divide minus 2y by minus 2, we get y, right? Well, I hope that makes sense. Oops. So we'd have to divide minus 2 by both sides. So then we have y is equal to 3 over minus 2. Okay. Now, what I will do here is, because the minus is at the bottom, what you can do is you can move it to the front of the fraction. So you can write this as equal to minus 3 on 2. Okay. Now this looks a lot better than this. In the future, if you have an answer with a negative at the bottom, you can move the negative to the front, like this. Okay, so this is the second example. Now I'm going to go through a worded example. Now worded examples are always challenging for a lot of students, so make sure you pay attention to this, because in the exam, these are the kind of questions that students struggle with, and it separates the good students from the average students. So let's take a look at the question first. James works 8 hours at a rate of X dollars per hour. In the next 3 hours, he works at 2 times the rate. If he earns $300 in total, write an equation and find out his normal hourly rate. Okay, so in this case, you have to write an equation to find out the hourly rate. That means you have to use these variables somehow to come up with an equation. Now, if James works 8 hours at a rate of X dollars per hour, how much does he earn after 8 hours? So if you think about it, it should be this number multiplied by this number, right? Because say, for example, he gets $10 per hour, then we know that after 8 hours, he'll have $80. And to get the 80, you multiply the 8 with the 10. So in this case, it's an X. So we know that 8 times X is how much he earns after 8 hours. And then here it says, in the next 3 hours, he works at 2 times the rate. So that means in the next 3 hours, the hourly rate will become 2 times X, right? So what this is saying is, his rate becomes 2x, yes? And to work out how much he earns in the next 3 hours, we can just do 3 times the hourly rate, which is 3 times 2x, right? So that means you have to add how much he earns in the next 3 hours, which is 3 multiplied by 2x, right? So in total, this is how much he has earned after 8 hours plus the next 3 hours of double time. And this should equal to 300. Right? So this is the equation that we have to write. And this is usually the most challenging part. Okay? So it might take a bit of practice, but you'll eventually get there. Or at least, I hope. Next step, you solve this equation. So we have 8x. Now 3 times 2 gives you 6. So 3 times 2x gives you 6x. Is equal to 300. Okay. Now you have to simplify. In other words, collect like terms. So 8x plus 6x is 14x. You can think of it as 8 apples plus 6 apples gives you 14 apples. Equals 300. And to solve for x, so remember the step that I had to do to make 14x turn into x, you have to divide by 14, right? Divide by 14. So then you have x is equal to 300 on 14. Now, because this question says find out his normal hourly rate, that means we have to make sure we have the right units for our answer. Now, we do not want to write he earns 300 over $14 per hour. You have to convert this. So I'm just going to use my friend calculator to work out what this number is. And we get 21.43. Now, the reason I write this to two decimal place is because it's asking you to write his normal hourly rate. And when it comes to writing money, we always write it to 2 decimal places. So, and once you write the answer, you can write a conclusion. So you can say therefore. So the 3 dots represents therefore James earns $21.42. $21.43 per hour. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. There's one more thing I didn't mention. So we know that 314 does not actually equal to 21.43. This is just rounded to 2 decimal place. So you should write here 2dp, which means 2 decimal place. Okay. All right. So this is the last example that I have for you. I hope you've learned something, and I'll see you next time.